The Nile is like the stories.
Rich culture.
The memories and families.
Touch me on a level I cannot explain.
But the Nile being the pride of Uganda, it is very significant in the lives of most of us as Ugandans, but also the fact that it is the source of the greatest river in the world.
As everyone, most people in Ethiopia perceive it, it's always been embedded in the literature and the music and in the arts and in the fabric of the whole cultural elements. And then it's always been a sense of inspiration, pride. It embodies a lot of symbolic meanings.
There's a certain peace and a certain sense that you get of the stories that come along with it, and how far it has flowed, the lives it has touched as it flows.
والنيل مصدر مهم يعني بصراحة في حياتنا لأن احنا بنستخدمه كحياتنا اليومية وبيبقى مصدر رزق لأبهاتنا وأخواتنا لأن هم مش بيشتغلوا شغل حكومي فشغالين على المراكب.
They have a relationship of give and take with the Nile. They're living next to the Nile. They use it for agriculture. They use it for daily needs of getting water, washing their dishes, irrigating their lands, and even in some customs or traditions, in circumcisions and weddings, the Nile is visited and people dip their feet in the Nile.
Nile is not just like a water, but it's the memories and families and a lot of things.
It's a living being. It's a connector interacting with the communities that live around. There is almost a certain energy that runs through this whole river and connects the people and the communities.
So Africa is what it is because of the Niles. I have Egyptian friends, Ethiopian friends, and without the Nile I wouldn't have them because there would not be life. And I know the Nile crosses so many countries, and many of my friends, they drink the water from the Nile. They use that water to survive. So without the Nile they wouldn't be there. So I feel grateful. Africa is what it is thanks to the Nile.
Shared a lot with each other, actually, all the Nile Basin countries, whether it's individual stories in terms of upbringing and the rituals that the different cultures hold with the Nile and throughout their history, but also like more modern stories that are a little more sad, like the story here in Aswan of the displacement of the people due to the building of the dam, and similar stories in other countries.
But the beauty of really allowing to listen into the past movements this land has witnessed over all these decades, and allowing to listen into the pains, kind of almost embodying the stories which we have not lived as persons or individuals. By listening, also kind of taking ownership of these stories.
We look at different countries in Africa as a continent. We have really rich histories, and there are very many similarities that kind of cut across other countries. A lot of traditions that have died off, but that are also present in everyday life.
Our civilizations have always lived the rhythm of the Nile and lived with the Nile and not against it.
I can clearly see the resemblance, and especially even in the way how people act and how people interact with each other, and then how they carry themselves, how they communicate. Especially in Aswan, it's like I can hardly tell, who is from where, unless they start speaking to me. It's uncanny, but it's like, even including traditional elements, of course. But I think for me the most important thing is like how, the humanness of the people than the specific cultures.
And I feel so connected with the people, and particularly this island, because the contrast between us is that we come from an island just like here, but when you look across, you will see green things. You will see trees, you'll see vegetation covers, which is totally different, the opposite of here. So the only thing they have here is this water. And that is their hope. So that actually connects me in a way that anything I'm doing back at home in relation to River Nile and the water and the source, I really have to be conscious that there are people also up here who only depends on it and do not have alternatives.
Because it's very important that we consider that any damage to our ecology is irreversible. Then it means that it will affect not only us, but future generations. Across the Nile Basin, we do not have a platform that connects civil society, that connects citizens, and enable opportunities of transboundary nature to emerge.
I was just very curious to connect from people from other countries, and I think for me, as a member of a civil society, this connection to a regional civil society from the Nile Basin countries is already a great expectation.
What could the Nile Forum look like? How could it operate? And also, what would it work on?
So when I think about the forum, if it's coming from a place of service, it needs to be like the Nile. The Nile serves its millions of beings, under the water, and also all the millions of people that actually depend on it.
So it's an open platform where someone says, I have a passion for this, and I want other people to know about it. But beyond that is, how then can we collaborate? How then can we, build a community of communities?
We're opening doors for these projects. In a sense, it allows the local impact to be scaled across the Nile. A supporting mechanism for all these people that have ideas and already have projects, but don't have a place to either promote them or find a way to disseminate what they're already doing, or actually even helping them in the most basic things that we actually assume that they should know in terms of organizational structure, the things of way of fundraising.
This forum is on a longer time frame. I perceive it as something that's going to be very important and very valuable and very active.
Being a very neutral vehicle can support the connection of all these Nile countries that has such a diversity, and how we can actually enhance this diversity and actually bring us together, because the human race needs this, not just the continent that we actually represent and had connection with.
And the more we are connected, the more we create a culture of peace, and the more we create a culture of sustainability.
Not only to resolve conflicts or to avoid conflicts that might arise, but also to further, create development and have a sustained, peace around the whole region.
The method we used for the seed camp is inspired by the art of hosting, which is a methodology that is based on a major assumption that we are living in a time of great change, when the solutions that we have used before no longer really work for us, and we have to discover new ways forward. So the art of hosting invites people to bring their expertise and their differing perspectives, even conflicting ones, but to be in a place of inquiry, of curiosity, to be in the place of not knowing. We call it the space between chaos and order, the space between knowing we need to find a new way, we don't know how, but having faith that together we will find it through dialogue.
Regarding the process which unfolded throughout these last 7 days, where the diversity which was present in the whole seed camp, where that became more visible as a strength and as a source we can tap into, rather than something which is separating us.
So the methodology works with complexity, and it is like working in an ecosystem. We need the complementarity and the difference between us in order to create that which is greater than any one of us.
Trying to understand how people relate with each other, and then trying to develop, what the common things we have and what we share, which might as well be just the Nile itself.
So from a personal story, my story of how I'm related to the Nile, having surfaced that, we image the different stories to say, so then what is common within our stories that identify us to the Nile?
What we have done is weaving them together and making it a living knowledge, an embodied knowledge. Through that, creating more empathy, more respect, more tolerance for all the different layers which are coming together.
And so the people that came here, each and every person, I felt came with a seed and a root of really wanting to call us back, but also bring us forward into a place where our humanity and our humanness can actually generate a better world.
The coming together of the societal multipliers was a good starting point to what could happen that would, present a different narrative story to what is happening in Africa.
We as Africans can actually write the new story of humanity.
A humanity that both allows the uniqueness and the difference of each of us, but also transcends this and creates a unified notion that we can all be of one tribe.
After the end of this camp, we are one. Africa is one.
I wish that the people can see the Nile, that it tells the story of all these countries, and it holds the history together.
It's the story from the past, and it is informing us in a meaningful way for the future to come.
Africa today does not need war. We need people to come together and sit down and talk. We need to reason together and see how do we really want to move this continent forward.
And the stories that we share, we want to share with the world, because now that we have this knowledge and we know the stories and we know the history of what happened to the people, we can't just let it reoccur and pretend like this history never existed.
And I'm calling upon people out there to support initiatives like this, because this is the only way we can unite Africa.